guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany. Today I wanted to share some of the books that I have purchased within the last month or so. I have some books from book outlets and from Amazon when they did their buy 3 for the price of 2 sale, some thrift book orders, and then also a few books that my husband's grandmother sent to my daughter. So I thought I would share those with you. So let's dive into it. I think I'll start with my thrift books order. So I got Wings of Fire by Tui Sutherland. I don't really know much about this book other than that it's about dragons, and I'm pretty sure it's a fairly extensive series. I want to say there's like over 10 books in it. This is the first book in the series. We, for our homeschool, use Brave Writer for language arts, and this is a guide that we recently got, so I went ahead and purchased the book. My daughter's huge into fantasy, so I think this one will be a big hit. I've seen some booktubers, especially Chantel and An Intentional Life, read the first line of the books from their book haul, so I thought I would do the same. Oh, this is cool. It's got like pictures of different dragons in the front. Alright, so the first sentence is, a dragon was trying to hide in the storm. So there's that one. The next one I got is The House of 60 Fathers by Maynard de Jong. I may be butchering that pronunciation, I'm not sure. More popular book of his is The Wheel in the School, which we own, and we also really love his book Along Came a Dog. And his books are out of print, so anytime I see one for a reasonable price, I always snatch it up, even if I haven't read it yet. This one was no exception. I don't know what time period this takes place in, but I think it's like takes place in China, so it's historical fiction as well. So the first sentence, rain raised the river. Not exactly a gripping first sentence, but that's okay. The next one is The Wolves of Willoughby Chase by Joan Aiken, and this book I don't really know much about. I know that's about some girls and a governess, and it's kind of like mysterious, so it kind of gives me like gothic thriller vibes, but it is a middle grade, so I'm hoping to be able to read this with my daughter pretty soon. In fact, we almost did, and then we had to return it to the library before we got to it, so I went ahead and bought it because lots of people love it. The first sentence, it was dusk, winter dusk. Sounds pretty atmospheric for winter, going into spring, but still. And the last book that I got from Thrift Books is When the Darkness Will Not Lift by John Piper. This is a pretty tiny little book. It's for Christians who are struggling with depression, which I have a lot over my life. I actually already owned a copy of this book, but I gave it away to a friend who was struggling with depression, and I've been wanting to read it, so I went ahead and purchased it. The first sentence is, in addressing the topic of spiritual darkness, I am aware that I have put my oar into a very large sea. Really looking forward to reading that one. I will do my Amazon one next. So the first one is one that is actually my daughter's, and this is Keeper of the Lost Cities Unlocked. This is book 8.5. So I guess book 9 was supposed to come out sometime last year, but it didn't. It's been delayed for whatever reason. So the author released this book, and a good chunk of the book is like maps and pictures and like registry files of the different characters and that kind of stuff, which is really cool for my daughter because she loves that kind of stuff. So it's kind of almost like a collector's type thing. But then I think the last third of the book or so is a novella. So I'm not going to read the first sentence in this one because if it's just the collector type stuff, I don't need to read that. And then if it's the first sentence of the novella, I don't really want to spoil anything for myself. The next one I got is The Rise and Fall of Mount Majestic. This is a super fun middle grade fantasy book. The main character's name is Persimmon Smudge, which is hilarious. A lot of this book is really funny and witty, and we really enjoyed the humor in it, but the adventure was really good too. So, first sentence. There is a very good possibility that you will not believe a word I say. Alright, next I got Winter House by Ben Guterson. I have seen this book everywhere on BookTube lately, it seems like. Seems like everyone loves this book. I really don't know much about it other than that it's got word puzzles and it's a mystery and it's a middle grade book. So I bought this sight unseen, so hopefully I like it. I almost never do that. I tend not to buy books new a lot of times anyway, but especially for someone that I haven't read any of their books or anything like that. So, first sentence. When Elizabeth Summers tugged open the gate to her aunt and uncle's yard and saw an envelope duct taped to the front door of the shabby house she shared with them, she knew it was bad news. That's Winter House. The other middle grade book that I got in my Amazon haul, I can't find it. I don't know where in the world it is. But it's Children of the Longhouse by Joseph Bruchac. And this is a story, a Native American story. It's historical fiction. It is own voices, which is awesome. I can't remember what tribe. I feel like it might be the Mohawk tribe, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But it's about a brother and sister growing up in this tribe. It's really awesome. It just has a lot of historical detail as to how they lived their lives, the games that they played, the different things like that. It's really, really good, and I'm going to read it with my daughter sometime in the upcoming school year. The next book I got is A Tangled Web by Lm Montgomery. This is one of the books that she wrote that was exclusively for adults, so I'm assuming it doesn't have the same childish charm that Anne of Green Gables and Emily of New Moon have, but I am still really looking forward to reading it. So it is about I think like this vase on the front here, it's like some sort of family heirloom and people are arguing about it, but I don't really know anything other than that. So the first sentence says, "A dozen stories have been told about the old dark jug. This is the true one." And the last book that I got from Amazon is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. My very first wrap-up video that I did in January, I read this book and it was my favorite book of the month. It was really good. It was my first Shirley Jackson book that I had ever read, and I don't know how many novels she's written. She, I think, tended to write more short stories, but this is a novel she wrote. I think it's classified as like a gothic thriller type deal. And the first sentence says, "My name is Mary Katherine Blackwood." Not that intriguing of a first sentence. The first paragraph's really good though. I really liked that. Okay, so books that my husband's grandmother sent my daughter. We actually named our daughter after my husband's grandmother. So they're both named Claire. And she's just such a special person. We love her, and she loves to send old books to Claire, and we love that because, I mean, obviously a lot of these books that I am hauling today are new books, but I prefer old books. I love old antique books. I love the look, and I love like yellowed pages, and I love the smell. Like, I just love them. And they're oftentimes a lot prettier than newer books. There are exceptions, but you know. So the first one I have here is Lasky Come Home. I don't really know much about Lasky other than that she's a collie. That's all I know about her. I actually almost bought this book from Book Outlet, and then I didn't for some reason, and I'm really glad I didn't, because not only did I end up with it for free, but it's such a pretty edition, and it smells amazing. It's got this really cool map in the front. So the first sentence says, "Everyone in Greenall Bridge knew Sam Carraclaw's Lassie." Another book that she sent us, this is not an antique book, but it's Heidi. And we actually have a couple versions of Heidi. I love Heidi. But this Puffin in Bloom edition is gorgeous. Like, I love the gold foil and the flowers on the front, so definitely keeping it. I don't care how many editions of Heidi I have, I'm keeping it. So yeah, so I will read the first sentence. "The pretty little Swiss town of Mayenfeld lies at the foot of a mountain range whose grim, rugged peaks tower high above the valley below." So, I love Heidi. It's so beautiful. Not only is the story beautifully written, but the imagery is gorgeous, and I'm like hungry every time I read it. She also sent us this book, which is Heidi Grows Up. And my daughter told me that Heidi was originally in 2 parts, and this is the 2nd part. So I don't know. I'll have to like look through it and see. The last book that she sent us is like a short story collection, but it is kind of like a picture book, and it's The Magic Fishbone by Charles Dickens, and I didn't even know that he wrote children's books. But that's in here, and then there's some other English folktales in here as well. Yeah, and this book was published in like 1940, so I absolutely love it. Okay, let's get to the book outlet haul. I ordered a bajillion books from book outlets. I had some rewards from previous orders, and then some of you ordered from my affiliate link, which I love. Thank you so much. So if you've never ordered from Book Outlet before, your first order, if you use my link, you can get $10 off your first order, and then I get $10 in free books as well, so we both win. I had some rewards from some of you, and then some rewards of my own, because you earn points for however many dollars you spend. Once you reach a certain threshold point, you get $5 off or $10 off. So yeah, so I had some money off on these, and I bought a bajillion books, as one does. So let's dive into that one. The first one I have here is one of the Paper Mill Press editions, which I have a bunch of Jane Austen books in this, and this one is the Arabian Nights, and this one's compiled and edited by Andrew Lang, and I really love his fairy books. We have, I think, the Blue Fairy book and then the Rainbow Fairy book, and I like how he compiles and edits fairy tales. So I liked that it was his edition, and the cover is just beautiful, and I think, yeah, it has like a ribbon bookmark too. So let's see, first sentence. In the chronicles of the ancient dynasty of the Sassanidae, who reigned for about 400 years from Persia to the borders of China, beyond the great river Ganges itself, we read the praises of one of the kings of this race who was said to be the best monarch of his time. That was a long sentence. Okay, I have a lot of middle grade books in here, and a lot of classics too. So I bought a whole bunch of books by Felix Salten, and he wrote Bambi, which I have Bambi and Bambi's Children, and then they had all these other ones by him too, so I got a few of them. So I got The Forest World, Rennie the Rescuer, and then Perry. So The Forest World is obviously about the woods. And the first sentence says, when the sun appeared, the blackbird began to sing. So, and then Rennie the Rescuer, it takes place in some war. I want to say it's World War I, but I could be wrong about that. And I think he finds injured soldiers and like helps like locate them and stuff. So the first sentence says, we shall call him Rennie, said the man who raised the shepherd dogs as he took the puppy out of the basket away from his mother. And then the last one here, Perry, it's about a squirrel who, there's like this little girl who learns how to understand and talk to animals, which when I read the description for that was like right up my daughter's alley. She's such an animal lover, and she would love to be able to talk to animals. In fact, for a really long time, anytime we would pray, she would ask us to pray that the animals would be able to speak English, so that way they could understand her and she could understand them, which is so cute. Anyway, first sentence says, wish. With a rush, the squirrel whizzed down from the treetop, spreading all 4 legs wide, bushy tail twitching like a loose rudder. I can just like picture that in my mind. I still haven't read Bambi. I've only ever seen the Disney movie, so I would like to read his books. Like the little blurbs that I've read here sound like they're very like descriptive of nature, and I really like books like that. Next I have Tangled in Time, The Portal by Katherine Lasky. This is the Tangled in Time series. This is the first book. Katherine Lasky wrote Guardians of Ga'Hoole, which my daughter really enjoys that series. So I figured I would give it a shot. It is about time travel, and this girl goes back to the time period of Henry VIII, which sounded really interesting to me. So first sentence. Rose Ashley stood in the middle of the circle as the 3 girls spun around her. And then next I have a trilogy, middle grade historical fiction trilogy. It's the Seeds of America trilogy by Laurie Halse Anderson. I have Fever 1793 by her and really liked her writing style. This is Chains, Forge, and Ashes. So these take place during the Revolutionary War time period, but they're from the perspective of slaves. So these are slaves who are fighting with the Americans against the British in hopes that they will win their freedom. I read almost all of this first book in the series and really liked it, but I had to go back to the library before I finished it. So I went ahead and bought all three. I'm only going to read the first sentence of the first book because I don't want to spoil anything in case, I guess there aren't usually spoilers in the first sentence, but just in case. So the first sentence says, "The best time to talk to ghosts is just before the sun comes up." Next I have a bunch of classics. I know, you're surprised, aren't you? So I have Oscar Wilde's The Happy Prince and Other Stories. This is like the Puffin Classics edition, and I really like these editions. I haven't read anything by Oscar Wilde at all, actually. I haven't read The Picture of Dorian Gray. Or is it The Portrait of Dorian Gray? I don't remember, but I haven't read it. I want to at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it. But these are like short stories and like fairy tales, I think, meant for children. So it was like $2, so I went ahead and got it. So I'm just going to read the first sentence of The Happy Prince because it is the first story in here. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. The next one I have is Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, and I kind of goofed on this one because I actually own it already. I have not read this book, but the version I have is one I got from the thrift store, and it's a very beat up old paperback, so this is still a good replacement. First sentence. On May 24th, 1863, which was a Sunday, my uncle, Professor Lindenbrock, came rushing back towards his house, number 19 Konenstrasse, one of the oldest streets in the old quarter of Hamburg. The next one I have is the Canterbury Tales, which I believe is about people that come to an inn and they have to like tell tales for their lodging or something like that. So it's definitely like a collection of stories. I haven't read it before, but it is future recommended reading for Ambleside Online. First sentence. April rain was dripping off the branches as I rode beneath them. Feels very atmospheric because, you know, it's almost April, so. The next one that I got is a Louisa May Alcott book, An Old-Fashioned Girl, and I've actually never even heard of this book before, but I am looking forward to reading it because Louisa May Alcott, although I've still yet to read Little Women, but we don't talk about that. I'm going to. It's on my 2021 Classics TBR, and I promise I will read it this year. Or the first sentence, I don't know anything about this at all. It's time to go to the station, Tom. Kind of a lame first sentence. Okay, the last classic I have in here is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And I have heard really amazing things about this book. I didn't know that it was like 800 pages. Like, this book is massive and I had no idea. So I'd like to read it at some point, but I have a lot of other behemoths on my TBR right now, so we'll see how long it takes me to get to it. But I've heard some people say that it's like one of their favorite classics, so I am interested in reading it. I think it's about like magicians or detectives or something like that, but it takes place during the Napoleonic Wars, which is a really interesting time period. I haven't really read very many books that are set during that time period. First sentence. Some years ago, there was in the city of York a society of magicians. So yeah, I guess it is about magicians. Next, moving on to some YA and adult books, I have Book of 1,000 Days by Shannon Hale. Shannon Hale wrote Goose Girl and Princess Academy, both of which are fairy tale retellings that I absolutely love. This book, I believe, is also a fairy tale retelling. It's about a princess, I think, and her maidservant who get locked in a tower. Not like Rapunzel-esque, though. It's not based on Rapunzel. It's its own fairy tale, but I don't know what it's called. If I figure that out, I will pop it on the screen, but I'm not sure. Let's read the first sentence. Day 1. My lady and I are being shut up in a tower for 7 years. So, yeah. I guess maybe it's kind of like journal format. So, looking forward to reading this one. I absolutely love fairy tale retellings. Okay, next I have a bunch of Brandon Sanderson books, and I'm so excited because Book Outlet does not usually have those. Thank you to Chantel at An Intentional Life for posting that they had Brandon Sanderson books, because otherwise I might not have looked when I did. So the first one I have is Legion by Brandon Sanderson. I don't really know anything about this. Like the subtitle is The Many Lives of Stephen Leeds. And this book was recommended from Becca over at Hicks Picks. And I think it's like science fiction-y, which normally isn't really my genre. But I thought high fantasy wasn't my genre, and then I read Brandon Sanderson and that proved me wrong, so I'm more than willing to dive into his science fiction. So yeah, let's read the first sentence. My name is Stephen Leeds, and I am perfectly sane. That's a sentence that makes me want to read more. The last books I have in here are the ones I'm actually the most excited about, and that is Skyward and Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. And yes, one's a paperback and one's a hardcover, so they don't match, but I'm not totally OCD about that, especially when I can get them for a really good price, and with my rewards these ended up being free, so I am not complaining about it one bit. These are, I believe, well, I know they're sci-fi, but I think they're YA. And Brandon Sanderson doesn't write a lot of YA. I know Mistborn is sometimes typified as YA, but it's definitely adult. So it's just been rebranded depending on what bookstore you're in. I have heard amazing things about this series, so I am like the most excited to read it. First sentence. Only fools climbed to the surface. That actually intrigues me. I know it's a short sentence, but interests me. Okay, so those are my books. I also have a book that I bought for my husband that's Charles Spurgeon's morning and evening devotionals. My husband absolutely loves Charles Spurgeon, and I was really excited to find like this beautiful edition on Book Outlet, but my husband has already snagged that and it is somewhere, don't know. So we're not including that in this haul, but I may have miscounted, I'm not sure, but it's around 30 books. I think it's 29. So we're just gonna say around 30 books. So yeah, I don't have a problem with buying books. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't run out of room and have to stack books in front of other books. Never happens. Never happens. The problem is not that I have too many books. The problem is that I don't have enough bookshelves. You know, it's just the truth of the matter. So it's my dream someday to have a room in my house where I can have like 1 or 2 walls that are completely floor to ceiling bookshelves. Maybe like a fireplace and some recliners. Like that just sounds so heavenly to me. So I have dreams, I have aspirations, and they're all book related. So yeah, so that's my book haul. So let me know, out of these books, which books do you think I should prioritize to read first? Like I'm like very heavily leaning towards Brandon Sanderson, as you could tell. There's actually a lot of them on here that I'm really looking forward to reading. So give me your thoughts. I would love to hear them. And also tell me maybe like the book that you have picked up semi-recently that you are the most excited about reading. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit like and also subscribe, and I will see you again next time.